everyone thought we were crazy. We would always buy duplexes initially, rent the other side out, help offset your living expenses, and then you'll be set. And then that's when I first came across you about midterm rentals. And it was in an investment group that I was part of, and I heard you speak for the first time. I remember closing up my laptop after that, and I was like, honey, we're switching up everything. This is what we're gonna do from here on out. I switched everything over to midterm right now, and just absolutely been loving it.
The traditional long-term rental investing, it's so hard right now to find a property that follows the 1% rule, which is you buy a property, it's $100,000 and you rent it for $1,000 and you're able to make cash flow from that. That's hard to do now for the long-term space.
Rental properties are like tattoos. No one just has one. You get one and then you're gonna get another one at the same time. But you have to get that first one. Just buy it and just know you're not gonna make any money, but you're gonna learn so much, not just about that process, but about yourself, and then take it from there.
Welcome to the JV Podcast. I'm your host, Jesse Vasquez. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the JV Pod. I am more than excited, and I'm going to tell you why. Today, we have one of my students, Carrozza, and I do not know if I butchered his name. I think I actually didn't, but I'm super pumped because this dude went from no properties to literally 18 properties in a span of a few years. But most importantly, he switched his entire process from long-term rentals to midterm rentals. And I'm not saying all of his properties, but he significantly is improving his long-term with midterm rentals. And I feel like so many people out there right now are investing in long-term rentals, and they're realizing that they're not making as much money as they typically would with midterm rentals. Cam is one of those people that sees that there's a huge opportunity in the midterm rental space and has completely reconfigured his entire strategy to focus on building business-to-business relationships. And in this episode, you're not only going to hear about how he started to invest in real estate, how he pivoted into the midterm rental space, but he also has a super creative way of being able to build internally with the cities that he's investing in real estate, where he can actually find out what that city is going to do, like if they're going to build a new Amazon plant, if they're going to build new things. And he's actually going to be the housing solutions provider for the city. And you're going to want to check out this episode because he drops some gems that are specifically about this that a lot of you may not know about. But most importantly, it's something I'm actually learning too. And I think it's a genius strategy if you're wanting to build a business in the midterm rental space by connecting with your city. And I'm talking about the municipality of the city itself. So everybody has their own cities that regulate and do all these things. He's internally connected with the city, which I think is fantastic. So you guys are going to love this episode. I'm getting ready to roll into it right now. I'm going to stop talking. I'm actually going to keep talking, but in the interview. But you guys are going to love this. Listen in. You are going to be amazed by Cam's story. What is up, everybody? Welcome to the JV Pod. I am super freaking pumped because we have not only a mentee, but Cam, I'm going to actually call you a friend of mine. You're somebody that I just realized, and I don't know how the hell I just realized this. Cam's got over 18 properties already, which I think is fascinating because I didn't even know that. And you don't even come across as a guy that's like has all these properties. But I really want to make sure that I had you on here because, dude, I remember like a year ago, you sent me a note, and this is something I'll never forget. You said, one day I'm going to be on your podcast. And today's that one day. Isn't that freaking wild, dude?
It's awesome. It's awesome. Yeah, it's so cool.
Yeah, let's talk about that real quick. Let's talk about, and we'll jump into you. I think it was probably a year ago. You're like, one day I'm probably going to get on. Like, run me through that mental space at that time.
Well, I mean, yeah, there's so many things about it. Is one, there's the imposter syndrome of like, man, this is what I want to do. I want to have this goal. But then it's like, well, what do I have to accomplish? Because I see this guy and see everything he's doing, and I see everyone else in the community, what they're doing. So it's like, I'm not really ready for that. Let me try and prove myself. And then it was one day that we were talking about before. It was just like, you know what? If you don't ask, you don't get. So I just messaged you on Instagram, and I was like, hey, let's get a podcast together. Here's what I want to talk about. What do you think? And I think it was like 15 or 20 minutes later, you wrote back, you're like, yo, let's go, let's do it. And so I was telling my wife, I was like, he actually went for it. So here we are. And like my wife and I are a big proponent of thoughts become things. And you kind of just, you think about it, you work towards it. And then here we are. This is so cool. It's just so awesome.
Yeah. You know, what's crazy to me, man, is like, I have people that reach out to me like this, and like, I don't think of myself as like authority figure in a way, which is weird. Cause like, I mean, in a way I am, and I'm just going to be super, I feel weird even saying that out loud. I feel like I'm just such a regular person that when somebody like you reaches out and says something like that, it's like, I don't think about it in that context. But then I remember like when I first started investing in real estate, I remember literally sending Brandon Turner a message on Instagram. He didn't respond to me. But I was just like, dude, I'm super excited for what you're doing. And then I remember hearing this dude named Dave Osborne, who's actually in GoBundance, this group that I'm in. I remember hearing him on Bigger Pockets, and I sent him a note. And like nobody ever responded back to me. But I think like looking back now, I can't tell you like if I would have got response from somebody. I think at that time, and I think a lot of us do this, and maybe you did too. I think at that point you and I actually knew each other already. But what I wanted to talk to somebody about was just for them to give me validity on the thoughts and the ideas that I actually had. Like I wanted to go into a midterm rental space, so I would send a note to Brandon Turner, just like, hey man, I'm like buying my first property. Like, what are 3 things I should think about right now? And like, he didn't get back to me. But I already heard those things like on his podcast on Bigger Pockets all the time. And I heard like David Green talking about stuff, which came in a little bit later. But like my brain was like, I just needed somebody that was doing this to give me a little bit of validity on like whatever I was trying to do. And like I just watch people that send notes to me and like that will reach out. And a lot of it is that, dude, they just want to make sure that they're actually on the right track or that they're doing the right things. And 9 out of 10 times they are. They're just in their own head with exactly, what they have going on. Maybe you could talk about that.
Yeah, that's totally the case. I mean, like you hear all these things on it and you're like, okay, I'm going to do it. And then you're like, you throw it out there like, hey, and I'm sure your DMs get like blown up all the time, of like, hey, this is what I'm doing, or what do you think about this? And it's like, you kind of have to filter some of that stuff out. So when you do hear someone, and I got to give it to you, like how accessible you've been and just like, yeah, keep it up, and go for that. That's all I needed to like, all right, let's go buy my first one. He says it's cool. Let's go do it. So it is some interesting psychology about that of you see someone on, online and like, hey, they wrote back. It's kind of a cool thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's cool, man. I know like I still reach out to people like, sending a note to Dan Martell to get him to speak at the summit and stuff like that on Instagram. And like, Cody Sanchez, even like last year, and just, you reach out to people, you don't expect them to get back, but like they will do their due diligence. They'll actually do that, like look you up, start to see a little bit like, and you wouldn't think that these people that are like doing these, things, Cody's worth 100 million, Dan Martell's worth probably more than 100 million. They would even spend the time or energy to do that. But it's pretty cool, man, because again, like we're human. We just want to make sure that we're like seen and heard. And it's just cool to get that validity from somebody that you feel is doing the thing that you're wanting to do at a higher level, get on the same page. But the crazy thing about all this, Cam, is like, dude, everybody's the same. Like we're all the same. Like,
yeah.
We're literally the same. Actually, let's talk about that now. Your name's Cam Carrozza. Am I saying your last name right? Carrozza?
Carrozza.
How do
Surprisingly, you're doing it right. Yeah. So, Carrozza, right, if you want to get the true Italian in there, but yeah.
It's a Carrozza. It's a Carrozza.
Yeah.
Carrozza. There we go. You guys don't make pasta every night at your house, do you?
No, but it's a staple for sure.
Really? Yeah.
No,
it's like the Hispanic beans and rice. Like my family, like that's literally all my entire family eats, which I don't even like Mexican food anymore. But Cam, tell us who you are, dude. We should have probably just started that off at the top, but tell us who you are, where you're at in the world. You got 18 properties, which is freaking amazing. Walk me through that whole process, like buying your first property, scaling up. Like let's actually dive into that.
Yeah. So a little bit about myself. Originally lived in California, born and raised there. And then about 2018, we realized like, hey, maybe we want to try and get out and do something different for a number of different reasons. And so we moved out to the Nashville area, actually Murfreesboro. It's hard enough to say, but we moved out here in 2018. Back in California, what we did is, I remember, I'll never forget it. The first time I heard about the concept of real estate investing, I was at my niece's birthday party, and some guy I go to church with who was sitting there, and he was talking about, yeah, let's, you should buy a rental. Like you can get them up in Yuba City. You know where Yuba City's at, right?
Yeah. So for Sacramento.
Yeah, exactly. And so he was telling me, he was like, yeah, you can buy them and you can rent them out more than what the mortgage payment is. And I remember exactly where it was. I was like, what? You could do that? And he was like, yeah, man. Yeah, totally. And so then I just went on this crazy spree of like learning all about this because I love making money without having to do much of it. I know it's doing a bunch of work, doing it on the front end and then, enjoying it afterwards. So then my wife and I just really bought into it. We're really, trying to find properties, what to do. And then what realized, my wife just had our first child. We have 3 kids. And what she found was like, hey, based on one income, we couldn't qualify for, a rental property. And so then we're like, well, what are we going to do? And then the lender just happened to say like, well, if it was your primary residence, you could. And so then that opened up everything. And so we're like, okay, well, why don't we get a duplex? Now, at the time we were living in Folsom, which is like probably upper middle class area in the hand
nice area.
for the time.
I like that area.
Yeah, it's super great. But what happened was the prices were too much, and especially for duplexes. So we found a duplex in South Sacramento, and my wife said like, okay, we'll do that. And so again, it was everyone thought we were crazy. It's like you're living in a really nice part of town, and the spot that we're living in, South Sacramento, was actually one street down from like the worst high school in town. And when we were moving in, I remember my dad saying, he was like, listen, if you live here for a year, I'll commend you for sticking to your goals. But if you move out before the year, I'll commend you for like making wise decisions, because this isn't good for your family. So, I mean, it was just one of those like, all right, I'm going to stick this out. And the first night and almost every night that we were there were helicopters going over with like searchlights. And, the kids would come down our street to get in fights because it was off school campus. And so we'd have to call the cops on them. And my wife, we found out right when we moved in, was pregnant with our second child. And so it was like all these things. It's like, man, what are we doing? So like a year to the day, we moved out and we moved back into Folsom, but that duplex set us up for what we wanted to do going forward. And we saw that. And so one of the things is like, I talk to a lot of young kids who are just getting married and they're getting out of college, and they see kind of what we've done with real estate. And they're like, what should I do? And I try and tell them, dude, buy a duplex. You're used to living in an apartment or in dorms. Buy that duplex, rent the other side out, help offset your living expenses, and then you'll be set. But not a single person has ever listened to me. They have to go for that new house, because I don't know if they think it's like beneath them or something, or like, no, I've made it. I finally got my first big boy job. I got to go get this. And if you just delay that gratification, I mean, that'll set you up. And so then what we did from there, we would always buy the dump house in the nice neighborhood, live in it for 2 years, fix it up, flip it, then roll that into the next one. And then by the time we moved out here, we sold off everything and we had some money to play with. And we came in and we've just been buying up duplexes initially. And then that market kind of stopped on the long term. And then that's when I first came across you about midterm rentals. And it was in an investment group that I was part of. And I heard you speak for the first time. And I remember closing up my laptop after that. And I was like, honey, we're switching up everything. This is what we're going to do from here on out. So anyways, so rambling on quite a bit, but that's kind of been our story. And we've just been picking them off and then switched everything over to midterm right now. And just absolutely been loving it.
Yeah, there's a couple things you said in there that I want to make sure that everybody, that we highlight back again, because they're really important pieces. So anytime you see me look down, I'm writing notes here. That's me just writing notes. And one of the things you brought up, I think, is so important, because most people aren't willing to go through any type of discomfort for, even 5 minutes, but you guys did it for a year. And I think that goes to, and I think it's a really cool statement that your dad said to you too. Like, for him to say, if you jam out of here less than a year, I'm not gonna hold that against you. But also, if you stick it out a year, you're following through on your goals. And you also said that you had people that were like, why are you doing this? It's not the best idea. But dude, isn't it crazy? Like your first deal, my first property was very similar to this. I didn't house hack, which I think honestly, house hacking is by far one of the greatest strategies on the planet. To add another layer to that, if you were to pick up a property sub 2, it's a duplex. Like now you're getting into even mega territory of greatest strategies of all time. Yeah. But yeah, if you can buy a place, live in one side, midterm, short term, whatever term, the other side, dude, now you get to live, 50% of your equity is taken care, or 50% of your monthly payment might come from another side, or 60 or 70 or 80%. Dude, we have people in the class that are doing 100%. They're not paying nothing to live in the house other than the down payment that they made or whatever, whatnot. But, I think that's really a great way to start investing. Again, you're delaying the gratification of a property. And if you didn't do that, Cam, you and I wouldn't be here on this call right now.
Oh, totally. Completely.
Like hands down. It wouldn't have happened the way that needed to happen. And that was probably a big learning lesson for you to show up in a space you didn't necessarily feel comfortable. And what was your mentality at when you were, a couple days in where you just dude, what did I get myself into?
So I remember we had this big bay window at the front of the duplex, and these sirens come and they pulled to go over right in front of our house. And there was 3 cop cars on there. And like I said, the helicopter, the searchlight. And my wife goes, well, what's that? And I was like, I don't know. I have no idea. Just trying to act no, nothing's happening. Everything's okay. But meanwhile, I'm thinking what am I doing for my family? I mean, this place, my car got stolen twice in 1 week, out of the driveway. I mean, it was the thing that really made me mad. We got, they're these Barbie dolls. My wife was about to have our son. And so kind of like we called like a push prize for my daughter, just like, yeah, look what your brother brought you. So we got like the deluxe set, these Barbie dolls of all the Disney princesses, and they stole it and they took that. And it's like, come on, man. So we've, my wife was very happy to get back, to around family and everything there. But again, I just keep coming back to, had we not done that, that wouldn't have set us up and just even set the bar of like, hey, that's the worst it's probably ever going to get. And we survived through that. So now let's switch our strategy and do kind of the live and flips. And that a buddy of mine was telling me we're about to sell it. And he told me, hey, if you sell it, wait 2 years to sell this, you don't have to pay capital gains tax. And that just blew my mind too. So every step along this way, I mean, you've just learned so many different lessons that has carried forward. And so that was our strategy every 2 years. And what's funny is we're going to church back there at the time. And so everyone hated, every 2 years, okay, now we got to, help you move to the next place and to the next place, which I think it's funny. We moved out here and then deacon in the church and they put me in charge of moving people. So I'm like, all right, it all comes full circle. And now I'm in charge of moving people there. So
that's funny, man. I've Nashville's a really cool. I think it's been a really investor hub for quite some time now. I remember when I first started investing in real estate in 2015. Everybody was talking about Nashville being a place that was up and coming. There was a couple little pockets that were around that city too that were really coming up. So, which is awesome. But yeah, you're right, man. I think being able to buy a property, live in it a year, live in it for 2 years, if you're able to maximize that, do the upgrades, force the equity in it, and then you let it go or you rent it. You rent it to somebody and then you go and do it again and you keep doing that every 2 years. That's how I feel like people are able to kind of build the American dream. That alone right there will make you a millionaire. Hands down. That's how you do it. That's literally how you do it. And it's time, right? It's you got to spend time. It has to build equity. It's got to do its thing, which I think is important for, being able to grow and preserve wealth, especially if you're wanting to pass it down to your kids. That's the way to do it. And I don't think it's a hard thing to do. I think saving the money part is hard. I think putting the down payment sometimes can be hard depending on the job that you have or your wife has. And if you're able to split those, costs and she's all in with you, I think, dude, that's you're freaking awesome. That's the way to build it. Okay, cool.
I was going to say, just the thing I loved about the duplex living in that is you count the income from the other side towards your payment. So yeah, you got to save up for that down payment, but if you're living in it 3 to 5% on FHA. So, I mean, that's a real low barrier of entry. And if you just have to live in there for 1 year and then you can move out. So if you just 3 years, you could walk away with 3 duplexes, cash flowing duplexes. So
it's freaking awesome. So walk me through that now. So you guys bought your first duplex, you lived in it for a year and then you bought another property a year later. So were you doing that? You were in California, you lived here. So were you just buying every year, every 2 years? What was that? Because now you have 18 properties.
Yeah. So after what we did there is after that duplex, we went and we bought another house, waited 2 years. We were fixing it up, sold that, and then bought another house, which again, having a spouse that's bought in on the thing, we bought that second flip house 10 days before my wife had our third kid. So everyone said, you're crazy. What, why would you make your wife do that, move in there? I was like, it was her idea. So she found it, bought it. So then in 2018, we sold off all of those. And I actually was looking on Craigslist because listen to Bigger Pockets. They were like, hey, don't shy away from Craigslist for finding deals. And I found this duplex out in Western Kentucky. And so we're just messaging back and forth with them and kept the conversation going for probably 3 months before we actually moved out. And as we were caravanning cross country, we stopped in Kentucky to take a look at it. And it was like, hey, this is a good deal with me. And it's a good old boy network out there. So we shook hands and said, all right, let's buy it. And then it turned out to be a fantastic area. And so we just kept reinvesting and buying out there.
So in Kentucky?
Yeah. So in Kentucky, we bought that first one, had a horrible experience where we got the day we closed on it, both tenants just upped and left because they didn't want the new property management. So then it was like, oh, all right, this is our introduction to it. But we just stuck it through, and that's the biggest thing is just there's going to be ups and downs. Just stick it through and it's going to work out.
Got you. So do you primarily invest in duplexes then? Are you not really doing single family? Is that really where your focus has been?
No. So ever since I met you, I switched focus because I was diehard duplex guy. We've got 7 duplexes out there and it was always, buy the pizza, sell it by the slice, even if one side's vacant, the other side's covering the mortgage, so kind of hedging our bets with that. But then with interest rates the way they are, and then I think people caught on to, hey, buying duplexes, the prices of them went up quite a bit. And so I was like, I just can't make the numbers work. And I don't want to just buy for the sake of buying. And then when I met you in one of the classes and we talked about, midterm rentals, it's like, all right, well, let me start and buy this one. And then it's just been gangbusters, and the cash flow is so much better and higher quality tenants and just overall good experience. So, yeah. So I think that's that continuous learning of you try one and then it kind of comes to a roadblock. So, okay, we got to pivot and shift, and where's the business going to go?
Yeah, I talk about this all the time where like the traditional long-term rental investing, like I think that's great if you bought stuff years ago, but dude, it's so hard right now to find, and I'm saying hard like as in like there's people out there that do this every day. So when I say hard, I'm like for the general person who has no idea about real estate and is either getting in their first, second, third deal, finding deals is not hard. Like you go into a sub 2 group, you can ask, hey, I'm looking for a property in ABCD market, help me find that. But when you're first coming in, you don't know all that stuff yet. And it's hard right now, dude, to find a property that follows the 1% rule, which is you buy a property that's $100,000 and you rent it for $1,000 and you're able to make cash flow from that. Like, dude, that's hard to do now for the long-term space. So I'm watching a lot of people that are buying real estate, either like going already into midterm rental or going all into short-term rental or going into co-living or going into sober living properties or going into residential care facilities. And I call that the modern investor because like now they're just like, I can't do what traditionally worked in the past. So now I have to do something different. And we're seeing a lot of people that are kind of following that right now. And the cash flow is greater, Cam. Like you know that, like the running into your cash flow, like it gets higher. There's also possibility for vacancy. There's possibility for, it's a lot more. It's not passive. Like you mentioned earlier, like these kinds of things can become passive when you have long-term rentals. Definitely, for sure. I agree to that. You get a property manager, you have them handle stuff. You get a check at the end of the month or the beginning of a month, which is great. But in the midterm rental space, can you talk about some of the struggles that you realized like before you joined with us, like what you guys were doing for long-term? You discovered midterm, and did you try it on your own at that very get-go, Cam? Like what was going on that end? Like, and are your properties actually cash flowing as long-term? I'm assuming because you bought them a while ago. They probably are.
Yeah. The duplexes are cash flowing. So we bought them back in like 2018, 2019. And then in COVID, we actually went gangbusters and bought like 5 properties that year. So I don't even know how we came up with the money, but we got it somehow. So we did that. But again, we were stuck. And so that's why we shifted over. And so, we live in just outside of Nashville, right? But all of our properties are in Kentucky. And I also still work a full-time job, like I said, with 3 kids who are all doing sports. And my territory for my job covers 3 states, none of which are Kentucky. So I sort of forced myself to build a team. So yes, while it is passive, I'm more just on like the finding tenants. But the struggles was I'd never done a midterm rental before. And this is where I see people just have such a hard time, is like they read up, they learn everything they can, watch all the YouTube videos and like, all right, I'm ready. I got my LLC set up. I got my business cards. And it's like, okay, buy a property. Well, what if this doesn't work? And so that was the biggest hurdle. But I had enough of listening to like some of your stuff, listening to some other people be like, one of my favorite quotes is from Richard Branson. I've talked to you before. He just says, screw it, let's do it. And so we found a house for $140,000, just like this little cottage, 1,200 square foot thing. And so we bought that. And my wife loves interior designing and decorating and all that. So she's like, hey, I get to decorate houses. This is fantastic. So she was bought in on it too. And from day one, we had tenants in there. And I didn't really know how to structure the pricing, but she's a great tenant. She's a travel nurse. Everything worked great. She loved the experience. So we were cash flowing on that from day one, but then it had a detached garage in the back. And so I petitioned the city and I said like, hey, can we convert this into an additional dwelling unit? And so, had to go in front of the city and do all that. And they approved of it. And so it had its own separate entrance. So we turned that into a studio apartment. And literally the day we finished furnishing it, we handed over the keys to another travel nurse. And she's been in there for coming up on a year. And she just absolutely loves it there. So, so that was really good. And then a house came available two doors down on the same street. So we're like, all right, let's buy this one. And so we bought that. And so now that we just got our 4th one, we just finished last weekend. So
that's freaking awesome.
It's just rocking and rolling. What you'll find is like it's almost blue ocean strategy, especially in some of these different areas where like no one else is doing it. And so I know some of these like midterms getting out there, but you can find these small towns that nothing's available. So yeah, they want to come stay with you.
Yeah, I was actually just listening to a big, I'm not going to say his name, but one of the, like a big influencer in the space. And he's just talking about like, I would never buy property in a market that doesn't have any, short or midterm rentals. Like I just would never do that. And I'm just sitting there thinking like, dude, my gold mine is like finding those spaces earlier. Like if I didn't start that in Modesto, being one of the only properties and like being able to scale, like being that go-to person in this market,
Yeah.
I created the comps. Like, and this is what I think is really important is like, if for those of you that are out there that are like, should I get a midterm rental? I'm in a podunk city in Kentucky. Like who's actually here? Like that's where you start to dive in a little bit deeper. You find out that just like Cam with you, there's a travel nurse coming. There's probably a market that doesn't have a lot of clinicians that they can hire. So they're forced to pick up travel nurses, which cost the company more, the hospitals more, but they just don't have the amount of people that can take those jobs. But then you start to dig it deeper and you're like, okay, who's actually coming? Where are they coming from? What companies do they work for? Who's the recruiter? And you start to like focus more like a business. And maybe this is something that you kind of learned through networking with me, but did you ever start to see that like you were thinking about it, like you weren't thinking about like a business and all of a sudden you're just like, okay, like now it makes sense to me. I need to be focusing on these types of clients. Like I already know travel nurses are working here. Now here's maybe we'll talk about the, how you connected with somebody for the city that, is giving you a different, we can dive into that. But like, I just want to go through your head here at this moment. Was there a moment where you're just like a flip switched in your head and you're just like, I need to start thinking about this like a business rather than just like listing on platforms and kind of waiting to get booked?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, and you preach it all the time. It's all about the network and fostering those relationships and everything. And so that's what we've been doing. Even we only have one travel nurse now. Other ones are like corporate travel. We have a superintendent, and I know the guy's a manager that comes from Washington, which is so weird. Never thought they would have been coming out there to where we are in Kentucky, but they are. And so now it's a following up of, hey, we just got this new property, reaching back out to them. Hey, if you have any other employees coming out, just so you know, we've got this one available. And then, trying to expand it on and looking more into what is the city doing. And so we just happen to have like the city saying it's announcing a new Amazon last mile fulfillment center. So it's like, wow, like new developments coming in, another huge development. So then you look into, okay, what's the next layer beyond? And so it's like the business economic department, which I was telling you about before. Yeah. Hey, let me connect with them. And so been emailing them, probably emailed them about like 4 or 5 times before they finally reach back out. And so it's like, hey, I want to help you, like these new businesses, they've got people coming in, let's work together. Oh, we love what you're doing. Perfect. Just taking that to that next level. And so one of the other things too, it just hedges against, your vacancies. So, one of the things that I love the fact when I get people saying, hey, do you have a place? It's like, I'm booked. Now we're looking into, hey, how can we arbitrage to help these people out? So then again, that's the biggest thing about being in your group is just expanding my mind to not like just focus on, well, this is all I have. So that's all I have to offer. Like, no, let me be a housing solutions provider and see what else we can do.
Yeah, I love what if you guys didn't catch that, Cam was just talking to the city planning department of like what's actually coming in the future. So like now he realized there's an Amazon fulfillment center coming, which for those of you who don't know, like Amazon to build something from the ground up, they do it probably within a year. I think it takes about 365 days. But so many crews come from like all over the country to come work. And if you're in a random city in like Kentucky, I don't know if you got hotels nearby, but dude, I can tell you now that it's not fun staying in a hotel for 3 to 6 months or even longer at a time. And this is where Cam was like using his own intuition. Like, how do I actually go out and find these people? And this is a big subject. Like, I think a lot of you right now that are listening to this, going to a planning department and just saying, hey, I have property here. My goal is to be a solutions provider for folks that are coming to, gentrify our city or whatever it is. They're needing places to stay. And that's absolutely the place to do it. That's like, I think that's one of the like smartest strategies right now to think about. Like I can now go after these types of people. And again, this whole goal behind this conversation that I'm having is like for anybody, if to take away one thing, it's just to think about the types of clients you get and how you can actually acquire them ahead of time rather than, listing on Airbnb and listing on Furnish Finder and waiting for these bookings. Again, it's about being proactive. And like, this is exactly what you did, Cam. So talk to us now about like the follow up with that. What's happening right now? Is there any other, follow through with that? I know that there was a little bit more conversation happening. So what's been, happening so far?
Yeah. So with that, emailing back and forth, instead of just emailing me back, they actually called, and it was the CEO of the business economic development plan. He goes, "Yeah, I've been getting your emails. I'm here with my partner. Like, what are you in? What are you doing?" And so just trying to explain to him everything. And he was like, "Well, we don't deal with that." And I was like, "I know you don't deal with it, but you work with these businesses. Chances are they've got their superintendents, they've got, their construction or contractor staff coming out. We can house them. We can save them money. We can give them a better living environment or a better experience while they're here in Paducah." And it was funny as the conversation kept going on, his partner was like, "Hey, you know what? Like, have you ever thought about reaching out to the hospitals? Because, like these guys will bring doctors on, and while they're waiting for their house to be built or when they're waiting for, just get their living expenses, they want to live someplace with their family." And I was like, "You're 100% right." And so they were saying, like, "Have you reached out to hospitals?" Like, I've been cold emailing them, but you know how that is sometimes. And they said, "Well, on our board is the presidents of both the hospitals. So, like, yeah, we'll talk to them about this." And I'm like, "Perfect. Let's do this." And so they actually have an investor program. It's kind of like a sponsor. And so they were like, "I'm not trying to sell this to you, but here's what we can do. And we can go to luncheons and, you can be a part of those and kind of have a say in things going on." I'm like, it's no problem at all. So, for a nominal amount, really, we were able to become an investor. And now they're sending out mailers with all our information of like, "Hey, here's what they do. Here's what they provide." And now I have an M to go talk to the presidents of the hospitals, all these other businesses in town. So smart money.
Yeah. Is that like a chamber of commerce kind of thing?
It's a little bit different. It's like it, but it's specifically for business economic. What their whole purpose is to try and bring businesses into town, not just marketing the businesses who are there.
How many people live in that town, Cam? Pretty small.
It's growing. It's on the Ohio River, so there's a lot of like boating coming through and harbor trade.
Got it. There's a lot of growth happening in that market. You don't need to say the city, because if you do, you'll have people that'll start investing.
Yeah,
and not that there's. I'm the reason why I'm bringing that up is because like when I first started talking about Modesto, bro, there was 17 rentals in that market on Furnish Finder and all this stuff. And then now there's like literally like 300. Yeah. So it's like, you got to be careful about, especially spots that are small, because you're the guy in that market right now, right? It sounds like you're the person that has, a couple properties that are marketing in that space. And to go back what I originally was talking about, that I think those little markets that are found like this, that are, maybe 30 minutes, 50 minutes, an hour from big metro markets, are like my most favorite types of markets, because a lot of migration happens from those bigger cities, but also there's a lot of economic growth in those smaller little cities that are based off the big cities. So a lot of people move out of it. There's a lot of gentrification that happens. There's a lot of companies that come in these spaces. I mean, you have Amazon coming into your market now. And I think once somebody's able to kind of lock into a company that is either in their market or coming to their market, not only do you have the bandwidth to be able to build for like the next year or 2 or 3, but once that you get to connect with those companies, you start to follow them around where they're going, Cam. Like, so us and being in our community, we have, 500 something people. Most of the people in our community have more than one property. So now, like, if they're going to California, Cam would be like, "Jess, what do you got? And what do you call it, marketer?" They're going to Vegas. Christine, "Hey, I have somebody that I know that does, that works on these properties here." And now you're like actually becoming a housing solutions provider for these people that are coming to these different markets. And it just started with yours. Yeah. And I might send a referral to Christine, who's in the program, and she's going to kick me back a referral, like for just sending, referral income for just sending that over. So it's like, I start to watch these things happen, Cam, and they're super, super thoughtful. And it's also like, I can actually build a business this way, and I'm going to continue to grow in that space. So yeah, man, that's freaking awesome. And it's also really good that you are investing into that community, even though you don't live there. And what I mean by that is like, you're spending time and energy communicating with the people there. That's what most people won't do, dude. Like, they're not going to spend energy and time communicating with a business development manager or, somebody in the city, because they just like, what is that going to do for me? But like, now you're starting to see what the potential is of that when you start to invest time and energy in those markets. And I'm glad the city sees that, and they're like, we want to bring business here. So like, they're encouraging you to do this, which I think is also really important to notify, take notice of. Hey everyone, if you are feeling stuck or not like you're making the progress you want in your midterm rental journey, I've got something that can change everything for you. Imagine being part of a community that's not only supportive, but filled with like-minded individuals who are driven to succeed just like you. Whether you are just starting out, looking to take care of your business to another level, my community is designed to help you break through those barriers. We're currently opening up registration for new enrollees, so if you're serious about building a thriving midterm rental business and you want to leverage my 10,000 hours of experience, this is your chance. Don't miss out on the opportunity to learn, grow, and connect with others in the same path. I hope to see you guys. The link is in the show notes, and let's build something incredible together. Let's get back to this episode.
I mean, what the really cool thing is, the speed of trust, and once you build those relationships, how much more quicker, the whole process goes. I mean, just even from like working with the small, community bank out there, if you go to like JP Morgan Chase or anything, okay, let me see all your documents, all this time. Well, this property that we just got, this last week, I mean, I just called him up and was like, hey, this is the one we want to buy. Can we get it? And he's like, yeah, go for it. I didn't have to submit any documentation, nothing like that. It's just, yeah, I know who you are. I know what you do. Go for it, and just it's actually really fun getting to meet the locals up there. Great people, just absolutely fantastic people. And just the overall experience is like, why wouldn't you want to give back into this, for everything that they're providing too?
Yeah. What would you say to Cam, the people right now that are like getting into their first or second or third property, or maybe they're going into a market they don't necessarily know much about, and maybe they want a midterm rent? Like, what would be your suggestions for those people that are listening to this now that have been on the fence for quite some time about, exactly what we talked about earlier? Like, they're just kind of waiting around. They've invested in like learning all this stuff, watching YouTube University and watching all the videos, but they're still stuck. Like, what would you tell that person if they're wanting to build something successful?
Yeah. So, I mean, I guess it would just identify, like, why are you being stuck? Is it a lack of information? Is it a lack of money? Is it, just scared? Just identify that, and then perfect. If it's a lack of information, learn more. If it's a lack of money, save more. And if it's a lack of just being scared, do it. Just pull the trigger. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Like, one of my buddies right now this is exactly what he's going through. Is he has all the stuff lined up. He called up a construction worker at a hotel, and he got the hold of the right guy, and he goes, yeah, we're sending 6 more guys up there. Like, what can you do for us? And he goes, what do I do now? And it's like, just buy a place, or like arbitrage a place. So you just got to do it. And I know that's scary. Trust me. I know it's scary, but that's the only way you're going to learn. And there's so many little nuances. I don't care which course that you take. They'll never be able to teach you every single nuance. You're only going to learn that by actually doing it. But that's the scary, like, everyone's, fired up, ready, aim. They just can't pull the trigger. You have to pull the trigger and then make adjustments based off of that as you go. You'll figure it out. Like, that's the biggest thing. Like, because especially if you have a bunch of money in stake, you're going to find a way. So just do it, and you'd be surprised what you can do.
I totally agree. I'm with you on that 100%. I think most people get stuck in their own mind, between their ears of just like, is this the right thing for me? Do I have the potential to do it? Do I believe I can do it? And there's 2 people on the side of that camp. There's the people that believe that they could do it and they can watch the videos and make it happen. And there's people that are like, I can't do this at all. I don't even know if I could do it, even if I got help or joined Jesse's mentorship. Like, there's like these 2 different kinds of parallels with these people. But I would encourage you, for anybody out there that's sitting there on the fence, like, should I do this? Cam's right. Like, you just got to jump into it. I think the most important piece of this, though, is like learning how to run the numbers, knowing exactly what type of market that you're getting into. Is there competition? Is there not competition? Is there short-term rentals? Is there not midterm rentals? Is there growth that's actually happening in that market? Is there a reason why there would be nurses, clinicians out, doctors that may need a place? Is there construction that's going to be happening? Is there business travelers coming through? Are you close to, a airport? Is like, what's actually happening in those markets? And I think, Cam, most people don't think about those things. They're not like thinking big enough. And again, I believe that most people are scared of like just taking a bet on themselves. And I think that's really an important piece of the puzzle. Like, if you know that you're worried about doing that, that's why I say, like, join a community, because I think that's important, because you not only get to piggyback off yourself, but you get to piggyback off of like hundreds of other people that have already done that, and they give you feedback on what you could do. And everything's different. Like, I am still part of other people's communities. I'm part of other people's programs and stuff like that. because I'm still learning. Like I'm still adjusting. Like I don't think of myself, like, again, going back to the original conversation that we had at the very beginning of this, I see myself as still like, I'm going to be a forever learner. Like, I don't think of myself as like a guru in any way. I don't think of myself as like I'm learning just along with everybody else in this market and the midterm rental space. Yes, it's been around since the 60s, but it's so evolving right now and so fast that I'm still learning to keep up with a lot of the things that are happening in the market. And if I didn't have our students to be able to piggyback off like what they're seeing and what's happening, like I wouldn't even know all those things. So again, being in these communities, I think, Cam, is like super, super important. What's something that you learned, like being in the program with me in the community, that you picked up? Were you able to piggyback off other people? What was your thought process before and then post?
Yeah, so 100%. So all the free stuff that you put out there is fantastic. There's more than enough to get started, right? So then, I mean, we had two, and we were in contract on our third before I even joined your group. And so some people, like my wife was like, well, why are you getting in that? You're already doing it. And I was like, I don't know, but I feel like if I'm getting this far off the free stuff, there's got to be something else. And so my buddy asked me, now that I'm in, he was like, is it worth it? I'm like, dude, the amount of exposure that you have. And even we talked about Christine a couple of times, I told her about Amazon coming through. And so people were tagged, I could put up in the post like, hey, Amazon's coming. How do I not mess this up? And so people tagged her in there. She messaged me, here's my cell phone number. Give me a call. And I was like, what? You got to be kidding me, And she was like, so super encouraging. And then there's other people like the guests that you have on, not just Noble Crawford, but another guy doing corporate housing. And he was talking about, he just expanded, like taking over all hotels or apartment complexes. And it just blew my mind of like, there's a whole nother level of thinking out there. And so often we get in the scarcity mindset of like, I can't just do one. And then you look at people who are doing hundreds and it's like, hey, what's the difference with that? Like that's what I need to figure out. And so for me, that's been the biggest thing. And if something comes up, just, hey, quick pop in there. And like, while maybe like, some of the other influencers might not be so responsive, the community is beyond responsive. They want to help you out. And I think there's another level too, is we always hate it when people ask for advice and we give it to them, give them solid, sound counsel, and they don't take it. It's something just annoying with that. But I think when you pay for mentorships, you're like, okay, these are people are a little bit more bought into it. So I'm going to be willing to give them my time and energy because I know they're going to take it and roll with it. So there's
nothing like investing your own, putting skin in the game. And I think that's where, it's like forcing you in a way to like take action on what you're doing. And man, you're right. Like I was actually just looking today, we were running ads for like the summit and stuff like that I have coming up. And dude, just the amount of people, like I wish I can go read these to you guys right now. Actually, I kind of want to. Just the way that most people think, dude, they're like, midterm rentals are taking away from families that need homes. Airbnb is stupid. Like, I hope you lose all your like literally people are telling me that on the internet because of a video that I have where I'm talking for 30 seconds about like being able to make more money with a midterm rental and a short-term rental. And that mindset, dude, it's just so everywhere. And like, that's how most people think. They're like, everything's bad. Nothing good's going to come from this. The world's going to blow up tomorrow. And, like that mentality, like you get around people like that, you're going to freaking think like that. Like that's literally what's going to happen. And what I love about being in the community that we've created, I'm getting goosebumps right now. You can't see it, but it's under my shirt here. Dude, these are people that are thinking outside the box. There are people that are not thinking like doomsday. They're not thinking like, short-term rentals and all this stuff are bad. They're like bad for the environment. They're bad for the people. They're bad for like residents. They're thinking more of like, we're creating opportunity for myself and my family. We're creating opportunity for the companies that we're working with. We're going to build some cash flow so I can leave my W-2 job or whatever it is. And just a level of like, dude, those are the people that I want to be around. Like those are my people. And there's something powerful about that, dude, because not everybody thinks like that. And what I love about communities like this is that when you get those people together, there's like just an energy and a vibration and a frequency of just like wanting to do more and growing. Like I can hear it from you. Like I can hear it the moment you talk. Like those are my people. Like those are the people I want to be around. Because everything's negative. Like a lot of people are negative, and it's like I'm negative sometimes and I have to catch myself and check it. But you talked about something earlier. I want to piggyback on this. Can you talk about your mindset shift, like your early days versus now? Because I think this is an important piece of the puzzle.
Yeah. So we were talking about how everyone's like getting all the calculations and making sure, every little thing is like dialed in and like, okay, I'm accounting for every little thing. But it's a lot like having kids. You think you have everything figured out, and then they break their arm, or then something comes up that they have to pay for school. So it's like there's always going to be some variable. But that's how I was starting off with. Like, I mean, I'm pretty cheap. Like, I hate spending money. I'd like rather keep it. Thankfully, I have a wife who loves spending money. But so now, like this last property, I know what my buy box is. I know the market. I didn't even run any numbers. And in fact, I mean, this is probably bad, but I got the first statement for the mortgage, and it was actually $160 less than what I thought it was. And I was like, oh, hey, great, perfect, even better, So I just know what to expect. And so now it's no longer, trying to detail every little thing. It's more of, okay, we're good. Like I know what it's going to be. And so I think that's the next mindset just to have, is just having that confidence going in. And if it doesn't work out, guess what? I've got so many different exit strategies that I can deploy. And, we're fixing these properties up, so we have quite a bit of equity, and I'm, going into it. So worst case scenario, we're set.
Yeah, dude, that's awesome right now. Do you mind sharing any of the roundabout ballpark figures that you're making right now? Is that something you're okay talking about with your rental properties?
Yeah, that's fine. So the duplexes that we have, those are just kind of set and forget. That we usually cash flow with, like I said, we have 7 of those. That's probably cash flowing about 5,000 to 6,000 a month with that. And then our midterm rentals, it's about 1,000 to 2,000 for those. So I think last month or month before was the first month we hit like 10,000 in cash flow, and that was like, doesn't make sense, that it's possible. But yeah. But that's the one thing I'll go back to is everyone looks at their first deal and they're like, I'm not going to make any money on this. Like, why is it worth it? And I'm like, you're absolutely right. You're not going to make any money, but you got to buy 1 before you get 2, and you got to do 2 before you get 3. And the other thing is, I always say is rental properties are like tattoos. No one just has one. You get one, and then you're going to get another one at the same time. So, but you have to get that first one. And if that's anything I can stress to people, just buy it and just know you're not going to make any money, but you're going to learn so much, not just about that process, but about yourself, and then take it from there.
Yeah, I think it's important too to think about like, the cost of growth, like the cost of what it actually takes to build something. And again, I think anybody getting in business is going to want to make money from it. But again, that's where I go back and I'm like, know how to run your numbers, know what your market is doing, understand the city, the nuances that come along with some of these things. And again, like, I think this is why it's so important to be a part of communities, even the free community that we have on Facebook. Like there's, I don't know, 11, 12,000 people in there. But like, you just hear things that have been going on. You just learn new things all the time. It's just super, super important to kind of pay attention to. Cam, what's next for you, man? What are the next things you're going to continue to do in the mid space? Are you going to continue to acquire properties? Are you going to continue to focus on like insurance claims? Are you going to go somewhere else? Like what's the next 2.0 version of Cam?
Yeah, I definitely, my wife and I have, so I'm 42 now. We want to buy at least 1 property every year till 50. So like we're in our accumulation stage. And then at that point, the kids will be out of the house. So we'll kind of see where we go from there. But my wife, what we really want to get is buy some land and maybe even put up tiny homes on that. And so last night, my wife and I were talking about, she sent me this picture of this big A-frame, like this luxury A-frame. And she's like, now I just got to find land for it. So she's on the search for land, going on that. But here's the crazy thing is like, we can actually dream about that. And like, it's not just a dream. It's like my dad used to always say, vision without action is hallucination, And so it's like, yeah, we can actually put steps forward to get something like that. So, which is just crazy to think that's even possible. So I think that's where we're going to go.
And those A-frames, dude, you could buy kits now that have like basically A-frames put together that are already put to, they're already like boxable style stuff. That's A-frames. And it's pretty crazy because they're not crazy expensive. Obviously the construction costs and all that, and the labor out there is probably, that's what's going to be expensive. But dude, you can pick up these kits now. And I mean, you're in Nashville, so I don't think you'll have any problem with that. But buying land out here in California and trying, like, you can't do that here. They won't. It's hard to get permits for literally anything. Which again, is why Nashville, I think, is a great market to. Tennessee is a great market to invest in because the state allows you to do kind of whatever you want with land, which like you can't do that here.
Yeah.
In California. That's always been a vision of mine too, dude. When I first started my co-hosting company back in 2020, I wanted to buy land in like do exactly that. I wanted to get tiny homes. I wanted to like put multiple different properties on, have an experience, like a community kind of thing where people can come. Like I would love to go do a retreat where, a bunch of students and I go to 10 A-frames and we have meetings and we talk about stuff as a community in there in between. Like just, I think there's a lot of opportunity for people to do stuff like that. And I'm watching like Kai Andrew. I don't know if you know who that dude is. He does that a lot. He's on YouTube. My buddy Rob Abasolo has been doing that for quite some time now, and I think is actually selling off a lot of his properties to literally go do that.
Yeah.
To just start buying, land and doing all these things, which I think is super, super smart to continue to build in. Cam, it sounds like your dad was like a big influence in your life, man, because he sounds like he's giving you positive, sound advice. Like, do you feel like that?
Yeah. So my dad was like a serial entrepreneur. He actually had a medical lab. Like him and my mom worked on that together. So I mean, I come from everyone in my family's entrepreneurs. So they had that, and then they sold. I know we've crossed paths because I used to work down in Modesto, working for a large national lab down there. So like hearing you on your podcast with some of the doctors' office you went to, I was like, man, I was there too. So so when they were like 50, like in their early 50s, they sold their lab to a large national lab, and then instead of just retiring out, they started up another business, a foundation to help fund Christian adoptions. And so they put all their effort into that. And so it was like, it's so awesome to see. And like, that was his whole thing is, hey, I worked up to this point to now give it all back. And I mean, it's really cool, just to see him work and just have grit. And my mom too, she was the marketing side. He was the business side of things. And just them working together as a team to see what they were able to accomplish. And then now my wife and I are being able to do the same thing. And it's so fun doing that together. And now we're getting our kids into like furnishing the places too. So,
dude, I think it's really cool when I see couples that are both on the same page, both with the same drive, both with the same mentality. I think it's powerful because a lot of times I didn't have this. Like I didn't have that wife that was super like what you're doing is the best way to do it. And this is great. Like it took years for that to come on board. And I think it's so cool when you have somebody that is able to support you that way. Because it's hard to do this alone, man. It really, really is. And it's stressful. And so sometimes you got to make financial decisions that might not be the best. I mean, look at you with your first property, like living in the slums for a year. And like you had to do that. Like you were like, I'm going to do this. This is what I got to do. And we're investing in this together. And we have one kid and another one's on the way. And it's different when you have kids too. Like I know a lot of entrepreneurs out there have, that don't have any kids and like they're rolling around doing all this stuff, working long hours, which is cool. I support that. But there's also people that have families, and dude, that's a totally different animal and beast in itself. Like you got to be able to separate time. You got to be able to give to everybody, and you got to be a parent at a certain point. So it's just, there's so many layers and more complexities that come along. But I think it's super awesome that not only your wife's into this, but you got to learn this direction from your family, dude, which sounds like they had a pretty good exit with their lab, which is freaking awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool. Well, one of the things I just got to say a shout out to my wife, because I mean, that's the biggest investment you can make is just having a good spouse. I mean, there was times we were working on this house. We should have never bought this. It was like cheap. So I thought this is going to be great. But I remember having a phone call with my wife and saying like, hey, when you go to the grocery store for the next 2 weeks, only buy the essentials. Like we don't have any money. She's like, okay, all right. And literally the next phone call is my contractor. He's like, hey, I need $8,000. I'm like, no problem. I'll send it over to you right now. And like, of course I'd be communicating with her, but I was like, there's not many couples that would fly, but just having the shared vision of what we want to do. And she was like, okay, I trust you. Go for it. Just that's worth more than anything that you can put a price tag on.
Got you, man. I love it. This is awesome, Cam. I'm going to ask you some questions right now. I usually bring this at the very end, just some random questions that I think about. Would you rather rent to an alien or a ghost?
Oh, actually, one of the lieutenants said we had a ghost in our thing, so they were pretty cool. So I'll go with ghost. Ghost on that. Yeah.
All right, cool. What's one of the sketchiest ways you've ever made any money? Was there any like sketchy things you've ever done to make any cash? You're not like you weren't slinging stuff out there in Sacramento, Southside, were you?
No, but one of my old jobs, I was a part of the women's health division. So we sold pap smears and everything with that. So I was like 22 years old in a room full of women, instructed them how to collect pap smears. That wasn't a highlight.
Dude, that would be so embarrassing. Like, were you like super red, like talking about that?
It's one of those out of body experiences where you're like looking down at yourself and they're like this room full of women. You're like, what are you doing with your life? Like all life's decisions led up to this moment right here. So, but I won President's Club a couple of years on that. So, it is.
Dude, I love
is.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I won President's Club for some DME companies that I worked for, which is pretty cool to do when you're able to work for a company and get that, that accolade. It's a big deal, especially in the DME world or the healthcare world, sales on that end. Which again, you've learned, like, this is why I knew you were going to be really good at this. All right. My other question is, what's your guilty pleasure snack at a gas station? Do you have anything? Are you like picking up some freaking,
anything? The Quest cookies and cream bars, those things I like. When I'll go like traveling for work, I get like a stipend for breakfast. I'll go in there and I'll just grab a handful of those. And then that's my thing.
I love it, man. What would you rather fight, one horse-sized duck or 100 horse or a duck-sized horses?
The duck, the horse-sized duck. I like my chances with that.
I can see you doing that, bro. I can see you taking that sucker down. Get him by the feet, dude. Right, just like a freaking. That's awesome, Cam. Where can folks go find you if they want to learn more about what you're doing? If they want to connect with you, if they want to just reach out to you to talk about investing, where's the best place that people can find you at?
Probably just on Instagram at Cam Carrozza, just all one word. And Carrozza's 2 R's, 2 Z's, and 2 A's. So yeah.
Awesome. I'll have all of Cam's information in the show notes down below. Cam, this has freaking been awesome, man. I really love what you've been able to do. I love that you're growing so much in this space, that you've continued to put energy and time and build a business, not only just for you, but for your family. Dude, yeah, it's been a pleasure. And here you are, dude. It's freaking awesome to see this whole thing. I told you guys at the very beginning, beginning of this episode would be good. And here's Cam making things happen, dude. 18 units, freaking wild, dude. Keep going, man.
Yeah, thanks, man. Keep going. I appreciate you getting me to that next level too. So
for sure, dude. You're the best, man. All right, we'll see you guys in the next one. Thanks, Cam.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening to the JV podcast. I'm Jesse Vasquez, your host. I appreciate you for listening. And if you could do me a huge solid, go like and subscribe to this. This helps us tremendously. And as always, thank you so much for listening and have a wonderful rest of your day.